Hello. So we will start this session now. So please, everybody, take a seat. We have a change in the schedule. The first talk will be by Hitoshi Murayama on the report from P5. And then we will follow with the panel, and then the last talk will be after the panel. So please welcome Hitoshi Murayama.
Hey, thank you. So I'm supposed to talk about P5 report, but I've given only 13 minutes, so let me just cut to the chase. And I assume many people have seen the P5 recommendations already, so I'm not going to read every word of it, but just get to some of the main points and some of the updates since then. So as you know, every process starts with the community. And the first step is what is called SNOWMAS community study that was actually went on for 2 years because of the pandemic, from 2020 to 2022. And then funding agencies give us the charge to the P5 panel, together with the budget scenarios we have to adhere to. And then HEPAP, that's a standing committee advising NSF and DOE, actually puts together the P5 panel. And at the end of the day, the report goes back to the funding agencies, DOE and NSF, but we hope that that will be also written well enough that people in OMB, that's sort of the Ministry of Finance in the US system, Office of Science and Technology Policy, whose director is President Science Advisor, and of course US Congress that makes a decision on the funding would actually take note of this and try to implement recommendations for us. So at least that's the hope. And at the last meeting of the SNOWMAS process, actually a lot of us got together in Seattle, and there the high-level officer, Harriet Kahn, came from DOE and gave us the marching order for the P5 panel. And she highlighted that we have to face budget constraints realistically so that we can say community made tough choices, namely that we have to say no to many of the proposals from the committee. At the same time, community engagement is critical to success because bickering scientists get nothing. So we need to make sure that everybody's on board. And clearly, this is a self-contradicting requirements that we have to say no to many things, but community has to say yes to the report. And in fact, at the very beginning of the process, we looked at how difficult the job is. So these are the two budget scenarios given to us, how much money we can spend on new project construction at the level of $300 to $400 million a year. And we had to exclude on-shell Higgs factory pretty much right away because that would be totally off the chart. But even after that, the ongoing projects will saturate the budget for the next 5 years or so. And only 5 years later, we see room for new projects. And if you sum up everything else other than onshore Higgs factory people talked about in the SNOWMAS process, that would be more than a double of what we can afford. Clearly, we have to say no to many things. So when I told one of my daughters that your dad will soon become the most hated man in the community, she came up with this drawing so that I will be the most hated man. And so we formed a panel. And it turned out to be an excellent panel, and 4 other panel members are here at this meeting. And they, of course, have their own scientific interest and expertise, but they all managed to set aside their interest and try to think about what is the best for the community. So I was really blessed by this panel, and we also clearly benefited from 3 members from Europe, Beate, who is sitting over there, Christos, and Amalia. So we have been well connected with the European community that way. And there are some differences between the P5 process and European strategy update. So we are dealing with a broader scope of science, which includes astroparticle physics in European terms, dark matter, CMB, galaxy surveys, and so on. SNOWMAS and P5 are done by different entities. SNOWMAS community study is organized by American Physical Society, and P5 is done by agencies and HEPAP. And it's meant to be a quantitative exercise with budget constraints. We have to take the budget into consideration. So to be as precise as we can, of course, can't be perfect, we actually convened another subcommittee which studied the costs and risk of some of the major proposals that came to us, and that was led by Jay Marks, who used to be the director of LIGO Observatory. And this was actually an extremely useful exercise because we got to understand the maturity of the cost estimates on many of these projects. And panel members, unlike the European Strategy Group, are not representing countries or fields or collaborations, so they are all individual scientists of excellent caliber and with good judgment to come up with a strategy for the whole community. It was an extensive process, followed by many Zoom meetings to write the report, but in retrospect, we really did need this many meetings to come to a consensus for the final recommendations. And so you may have seen this graphics. So this part of the graphics actually points to a smaller and smaller objects. That's definitely traditional particle physics. But the US program also includes looking at things that become bigger and bigger. And that part, of course, is an important part of particle physics. And we have to glue them together in the end. So we had these 3 science themes: decipher the quantum realm, looking for smaller things; illuminate the hidden universe, trying to see what is actually ongoing here that we don't actually get to see; and eventually we need to explore new paradigms in physics. And that's why we came up with this title, picking one word from each science driver: explore the quantum universe. And we have 6 science drivers for the immediate opportunities we'd like to work on. And they may not look that different from the previous P5 science drivers, but it does reflect the change in our understanding in the field. For example, when we say determine the nature of dark matter, previous P5 report said identify dark matter, because 10 years ago we knew what the answer was. It has to be WIMP, right? Or maybe axion. Now it's wide open. That's why we are saying now determine the nature of dark matter, and so on and so forth. And this graphics we love, but it's too complicated for logo. That's why we drastically simplified it to this one here, so that this side represents going to smaller and smaller, this side represents going to bigger and bigger, and they're glued in the middle, and these 2 sciences are inseparable, that we can come up with a comprehensive understanding from the smallest to the biggest, and that's the theme of particle physics in the US program. And I'm sure you all know this priority list, CMBS4. Some people are surprised why CMB was particle physics, but if you think about it, if the CMBS4 would observe the beam of polarization from primordial inflation, then that is the first sign of quantum gravity. So this really represents access to the highest energies in science, and that's why we enthusiastically embraced this as a part of particle physics program. And we envisioned second phase of Dune. So what we envisioned is it has a lot of meaning in it. So initial proposal we couldn't afford, but the previous P5 recommended achieving 600 megawatt kiloton years of exposure. So we had to think hard how we can achieve that exposure within the limited budget. That's why we had to re-envision the program, ditching potential replacement of the booster, but rather trying to shorten the cycle time of main ejector so that we can achieve as close enough powerful beam as possible, up to 2.1 megawatt. So that's how we reformulated the second phase of Dune. And offshore Higgs factory is probably of interest to this community. And so, as I said already, we had to ditch the idea of building a Higgs factory on the US soil because we couldn't afford it. That's why we said we have to work with international partners. It lists FCCE and IOC in parallel, but we don't want to be bystanders. We should actively engage in feasibility and design studies. And then I come back to this recommendation 6, how we make decisions at the end of the day. And then we said the US should aim for contribution at funding levels commensurate to that of the US involved in the LHC and high Lumi LHC. So what we meant by this is that we had a feeling that the US has been a strong partner for LHC. And we would like to be a strong partner for the next generation Higgs factory as well. And we didn't say the same amount as the contribution to high Lumi LHC, because the Higgs factory may be larger in the end, and then it can grow commensurate to the size of the project. But we have to maintain a healthy US onshore program in particle physics, because if we put in too much into offshore Higgs factory, that will hollow out the US program, and we cannot sustain the community. And that's how we came up with this cost range of 1 to 3 billion. So I checked with Abid, the DOE program officer, that 1.3 billion is how much US contributed to the LHC and high Lumi LHC together. If the project is twice as big, it may grow to 2 billion or something. But as you saw, the amount of money we spend on new construction projects in the US is 350 to 400 million a year. So if we want to spend more than 3 billion, then that would totally saturate the US program, and then we can sustain the community. So hence this range from 1 to 3 billion, and I have to also emphasize that that is in the US accounting. So for me, it's very hard to imagine that we would contribute more than this figure. And then we listed an ultimate generation 3 dark matter direct detection experiment, and that's because there are excellent proposals, one based on xenon, another based on argon, but we didn't think we can afford to have 2 of those in the US program, hence an. And we say preferably sited in the US, but we didn't specify it because that depends on the funding situation. And finally, IceCube Gen 2. And in addition to this, the cost bracket for offshore Higgs factory, you see solid black for many projects we had to say no to. So it was a difficult decision. But commitment to Higgs factory, the previous P5 report had already IOC on it. They said R&D only, even for low and medium funding scenarios, it was yes only when the funding was unlimited. This time, we are saying yes, and it may be delayed a little bit, but still yes for all funding scenarios. So US is expressing much stronger interest in Higgs factory overall. And we don't want to wait for a final decision for the next P5, so we recommend to constitute another panel once there's a significant development concerning FCC or IOC in the meantime, so that US can make decisions on what level of the contributions we can make. And that the DOE already decided to actually convene such a panel when it becomes necessary. And the DOE has already worked on building a organization for a US involved in a Higgs factory. Steering committee is already appointed, so that is already ongoing. And you probably also have seen this joint statement by the US government and CERN, and it is showing the intention for the US to collaborate on the FCCE should the CERN member states determine the FCCE is likely to be CERN's next research facility following Hairumi OHC, and that is really the subject of European strategy update, so we are keenly watching what would come out of it. And many of you are aware that our highest recommendation, CMBS4, doesn't seem to be moving forward because NSF decided not to do so. And that is partly coming from the fact that we may actually lose access to the South Pole because the cargo fleet we rely on is actually owned by Air Force. They were built back in the 70s, and they have to retire soon. So this is completely above what NSF have control on, and that's why we as a community have actually started a little campaign to US Congress and also NSF to make sure that they get replaced. And once there's a guaranteed replacement, hopefully NSF would warm up again to allow us to start building projects at the South Pole. At the same time, DOE has already started to discuss with the CMBS4 collaboration if the same science can be achieved with the Chile side alone. So we will see what comes out of it. But we're working on both fronts, Chile alone option, and also trying to regain access to South Pole. And we actually reiterated with the Office of Portal program many times during the P5 process, but this decision actually came from the top level of NSF, and we didn't have access to, so we actually didn't know, and it was a surprise when I was actually given notice for this decision only 15 minutes before the announcement, so that was really shocking. And we also reiterated the interest in going to even higher energies so we can measure Higgs self-coupling 10 times better than Hairumi OHC, and that would require high-field magnet for PP machine or muon collider. We don't have technology in hand for either of them. That's why we have to actually do in development, and that's when we came up with this phrase muon shot, so that we hope the Fermilab will come up with a coherent plan to work towards the muon collider, but on the way can keep producing excellent science on its way, and that's why we remember muon shot. And of course, Wakefield has been worked on as well, and that's the highest, the first point in the investment in the future, vigorous R&D toward a cost-effective 10 TeV part center mass energy machine. We also emphasize that we need to have small but fast experiments, especially for early career people. We named this ASTE program, and DOE is very excited about it, so I believe that would get also implemented. So this is the implementation plan that came out of DOE so far. DOE will not support scope towards LHCb upgrade 2, so that will be purely NSF project. At the present time, DOE supports the development of the offshore G3, not onshore, because that will cost extra money. And for FCCE, you know the commitment already. For IOC, US is not joining ITN officially, but will be working on the US-Japan Cooperation Program. And DOE will meet its commitments of BEL 2 and also work on Super KKB for accelerating R&D toward luminosity improvements. And that they will implement as their recommendation, which is great. So this is the list with many notes. And one clarification I need to make, especially for the European community, is about forward physics facility at LHC. So what we said no to here is the package of 3 proposed experiments. And we couldn't take the whole package because of budgetary concern and cost effectiveness, but we do support the idea of hole in the ground, if CERN would actually do it, so that you can actually put in experiments, again, within this ASTE framework, so that would be great. So I understand forward physics facility is basically on hold in a European process right now, but we are interested in that. So after we put out the report, Dan Garisto, who is somewhere in the audience, had written an article about it. He used to be very critical of our field at the SNOMAS because he said physicists struggle to unite around future plans. But after P5 report, the roadmap for US particle physics wins broad approval, according to him. And he even tweeted, so when SNOMAS ended last year, I wondered how particle physicists were ever going to reach consensus that worked within a budget, was still ambitious, and didn't alienate huge swath of the community. Somehow the P5 report does all this. So I was very happy to read it. Thank you, Dan. And so it looked like I narrowly escaped the situation. So now I'd like to dedicate my daughter's drawing to Carl, who is now in this impossible position. So I wish him best of luck. So anyway, we are very excited about what we recommended, and hopefully that will get implemented by DOE, and we can move forward. Thank you.
So thanks, Hitoshi. We have a couple of minutes for questions, please.
Maybe I should leave this one on display.
For Carl to ask. Do you see any questions?
No?
Any questions? We can see that there. Yeah.
Hi, Hitoshi. Over here. Hitoshi. Hi.
Oh, where?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about the interim P5 or this post P5 thing that's going to happen after the European strategy update? How that will be composed? What kind of decisions they'll make?
So we have to work with DOE and NSF on that. So I showed you one slide on what DOE is thinking is at this stage, but they haven't actually looked into any more details about the recommendation report. And so that's why the HEPAP, that is the standing committee advising DOE and NSF, should be a watchdog to make sure that recommendations get implemented by DOE and NSF. So that will be an ongoing process. And we actually produce an update on how things are being implemented every year before we have a visit to the Congress in spring. So we keep producing sort of the scorecard on the implementation by DOE and NSF every year.
There's another question over there.
I guess this is a comment. You put the slide up, same comment actually, on the DOE's implementation plan. And the language there about a G3 that's offshore, I guess 3 days later at the DPF meeting, they softened that slightly to potentially onshore budget willing. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Oh, okay, thank you. Anything else?
Okay, so no other questions? Okay, thanks again,
Okay.
Hitoshi.
Good luck, Carl.
And now, I think you can come in, and I think yes, because we are going to introduce you, but you can come in.
So this brings us, I believe, smoothly into the panel discussion. You've seen that strategies for particle physics that have been developed and they will continue to be developed in our field. The future particle physics colliders, they do have a prominent place in our strategies in order to address the most fascinating open questions we have. The process, however, of developing these strategies, that involves the entire community and spans over months, if not over years. Today, in the next hour, we will not formulate a new strategy here on the stage. But we will look forward to hearing from the directors of the major labs about the status in their labs to work together towards the implementation of these potential future colliders. In addition to technology and funding, we will also address the more societal aspects. For example, the careers of the most talented researchers, as well as sustainability. In the preparation of this panel discussion, it gave us great pleasure to receive a variety of questions from many of you. And they inspired us to formulate a dozen or so of questions we will ask today. It goes without saying, if we would all ask all the questions, I believe we will not only jeopardize the upcoming coffee break, but also the upcoming conference dinner. So at this stage, let's welcome our major directors of the major laboratories, Fabiola, Lia, Shoji, and Yifang. Please, a big welcome. So, I am Jorgen from the Vrije Universiteit Brussel, and together with Florencia Canelli from the University of Zurich, we have the pleasure today to moderate this panel discussion.
So, hello. So to start, we are asking each of the panel members to introduce themselves, saying their name, their position, the lab that they represent. We also ask them to say what are the major research at your lab currently, and how many people are engaged in each of your labs, and what is a recent major achievement that you can quote from your lab. So let's start from, yes? Yes? Yes?
So, yes, my name is Shoji Asai. I'm DG of the KEK. My term started this April, so just started now. So the KEK is about 1,000 staff is working and about 10,000 users is joined. But not only the particle physics, but also the nuclear physics, photon factory, material science, and also life science people that joined our labs. So the KEK is currently working on the Super KEK B. This is a CP violation for the quark sector, and also the JPAC. JPAC is many facilities using not only the science, the particle physics, but also the material science or the life science. And for the with the JPAC, the T2K program is ongoing. The main achievement is Kobayashi Maskawa matrix has been determined in about more than 10 years ago. Thank you very much.
I will sit.
Yes, okay.
My name is Yifang Wang. I'm currently the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics in Beijing, Chinese Academy Sciences. I'm a particle physicist, training, experimental particle physicist. And our institute have 1,500 people, permanent staff, plus about 1,000 students and temporary employees. We are working on particle physics, astrophysics, accelerator science, and also the material science and the applications of synchrotron radiation and spallation neutron source. So our budget is roughly $500 million per year. And in the past, we had a few major achievements on facility construction, including 2 satellites and Beijing Electron Positron Collider, have a Debye react neutrino experiment, and also we have a synchrotron radiation facility and also spallation neutron source. Major achievements we had is the hadron physics obtained in the Beijing Electron Positron Collider and the θ13 measurement in the Debye experiment.
Good afternoon. My name is Lia Merminga, and I am the director of Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory. This is the United States Particle Physics and Accelerator Laboratory. We have about 2,100 people in the lab and a budget of roughly $800 million a year. And our primary research program includes particle physics, with flagship program being neutrino science, but also the Higgs boson study and the energy frontier using muons, the dark matter, and cosmic surveys, as well as accelerator science and technology. And based on these particle physics thrusts, we are now expanding in emerging technologies, including quantum information science and technology, AI, and microelectronics. I would say major achievements of our laboratory more recently, because I don't want to recollect the historical just today. I would include on the scientific front the most precise measurement of the muon, anomalous magnetic moment of the muon. We published the most recent results last summer. The first data came in 2021, and we expect the complete analysis and publication in 2025, as well as the output of the theory initiative. And I would say on the future horizon, I would say major accomplishment is launching the neutrino program, and most notably the LBNF Dune as a truly international program, enterprise, I would say, and the best-in-class neutrino experiment. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Fabiola Gianotti. I'm a particle physicist and the Director General of CERN. CERN brings together a community of 17,000 people from all over the world. More than 110 nationalities are represented. Some 2,600 people are staff. Then we have 1,000 fellow graduates and young people, and then the others are users from all over the world. I think it's important to underline that at any given time, CERN is training 4,500 young people, including physicists, engineers, and technicians over a broad range of domains. So, as you know, CERN is the accelerator-based laboratory in Europe. Our founding convention clearly states that our goal is to do nuclear physics. At the time, particle physics was part of it. So we have nuclear physics installation, and we have, of course, a very broad program in accelerator-based particle physics with three main prongs. One is the Large Hadron Collider, with now its upgrade, which is currently the world-leading facility at the energy frontier. Then we have a diverse scientific program, mainly at the injector, so the upstream part of the accelerator complex, complementary to the collider with fixed target experiment and antimatter study, etc. And then the third prong is the development of technologies to prepare for the future of the field, so vigorous accelerator, detector, and computing R&D. It's very difficult to single out Florencia and Jorgen asked me to single out one achievement because, as you have seen also this conference, CERN program is very broad, but of course I can't, I must say the discovery of the Higgs boson back in 2012, that was a monumental discovery, which of course shaped also our understanding of the universe and particle physics, and since then the numerous measurement. I am particularly impressed, for instance, by the capability now of ATLAS and CMS of reaching essentially the standard model cross-section sensitivity for the production of Higgs boson pairs, which gives access to the Higgs potential in the standard model Lagrange. That was absolutely unexpected just a few years ago, and this speaks to the, to the great analysis techniques, to the good performance of the experiments and excellent performance of the accelerator and of the computing as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So now let's start with the questions about the future. So in your opinion, and this is a question for all of you, what are the most pressing scientific goals in particle physics for the coming decades? And how can this be effectively communicated to the general public to highlight their importance? So it's for all of you, whoever wants to take it first. You can start.
So concerning the objectives and the scientific question, I don't think we have to expand on them because we've been really seeing them presented here. They range from the nature of the Higgs boson to neutrino physics, the dark universe, etc. So these are extremely important and fascinating questions. How to communicate them to the public? I must say that for what concerns the general public, I see that the general public is really fascinated by these questions. So when we speak to the public about the Higgs boson, the dark universe, neutrinos, they are really, really appreciate what we do, and they really support this. In some sense, particle physics is the modern expression of humankind quest of where we come from and where we are going, in some sense. So people are fascinated. I'm not saying that the same narrative works equally well with politicians, which of course want to see more on the return on impact on society, but it's also true that the general public is very much positively surprised by the huge impact that the field has on society. We have at CERN now inaugurated about 8 months ago the Science Gateway, and in 8.5 months we welcome more than 290,000 visitors. We are at the level of 1,700 visitors a day. So it shows that there is a genuine interest out there to understand physics and what we do.
Yeah.
Can I add? Thank you to Fabiola. I'd like to add a couple of comments to this. More in terms of how can we most effectively communicate with the public. Because there is a lot of interest, but I think we need to do overall to try to improve the way we communicate with the public. And some ideas might be that we as scientists have the tendency to first start by describing all the details, the process, and the details of the experiment and of the research we're doing. The general public might be interested in the bottom line, in what is the big deal, the big story. So start with the bottom line up front when we're talking to the public. And also knowing our audience is going to be very important. So tell a story, tell the way you would tell it to your mother or to your neighbor, rather than to a colleague of yours. And another idea that I had might be that since we in science do not get educated in science communication, it might be time now, given the importance of advocating for our programs to the public and the politicians, might be of interest to consider adding in the undergraduate, let's say, physics classes in the coursework, to add a science communication course, for example. So, yes, exactly. Yeah. And reward those among us who do a good job and effectively communicate. Thank you.
So if I'm in China, how important in China is also science outreach and let's say getting people engaged in science outreach?
Of course, it's very important. I think China is slightly different from, let's say, Western countries, because science were not really born internally by nature. It's something coming out, come to China from the Western countries in the last 300 years. So of course there is a difference, and I think we need to educate general public so that they are more aware of the importance of science and also understand nature of science. So we try to communicate people that the question we try to resolve, like the ultimate structure of matter and the universe, is actually not a new question. It's a question of more than 2,000 to 3,000 years old. Even in the beginning of the centennium, 2,000 years ago, Chinese philosophers did ask this kind of fundamental questions. So we tell people that we as a human beings, we should try to answer these questions using the modern technologies, and these will help us to, let's say, being a better human beings and being more advanced, say, civilization. So that's what we try to do, and that's what we did also tell people our research. And on top of it, we try to tell people that technologies we use in our research is actually useful for the society. So accelerators and so on are widely spread in the community, and the people have been using it, benefit a lot from this kind of usage.
If now we turn to Japan, Shoji, you have a long experience with the ILC and reaching out to society in Japan. Any lessons to learn from that?
Yeah, I think maybe we in Japan, so there are two ways of the communication. The first way is the same as Europeans, especially for the younger generation, we have to share of the passion. This is a very important point. But on the other hand, we need to take care of the taxpayers and also the politicians. I think maybe for using all the medias, I think maybe the accelerator is a very useful, not only the science, but also the industrial side and also the application, semiconductor, also quantum technology. Such a very useful is also that we have to say. I think maybe that we separate we try to the both ways now.
Thank you very much. Let's turn it to another topic. Fabiola, you mentioned very clearly that we have to reflect where we are and where we are going. And obviously in the 2030s, we might not be going directly to a new future major collider. In our portfolio, we have a variety of other research infrastructures. And let me turn first to Europe. The high luminosity LHC is clearly something we are committed to make it a great success. What does it take to take the maximum out of the high luminosity LHC and to keep the full community fully engaged for the next 15 years in making it a success? Are there some challenges for us?
So thank you for a very good question and for emphasizing that the LHC and the high luminosity upgrade is CERN's first priority, is also the first priority of Europe, the European strategy, 2020 European strategy, also in the US, we heard from Hitoshi. So LHC and high luminosity LHC must be successful. LHC has been very successful so far, and we should continue. There will be no future collider if LHC and ILUMI are not successful, because this really shows the capability of the community to deliver on a big project. So how to make it successful? Clearly, it's very important that now the upgrade of the accelerator is done properly and well. The phase 2 upgrades of Atlas CMS is the same, and that the three components, accelerator, detector, and computing, perform at the expected level, if not beyond, as it has been until now for the LHC. There will be also upgrade of ALICE and LHCb in order to exploit the full potential of high luminosity in terms also of heavy flavor physics and heavy ion collision. As you know, the LHC today has 10 experiments, the 4 big experiments, and now and more. We are now exploiting, for instance, the forward regions with the phaser, SND, and so there is a very rich suite of experiments that try really to exploit the LHC and the high luminosity LHC in the best possible way. So, in principle, we can offer the community the best possible program at the Hadron Collider. In practice, we know very well that there is a challenge of keeping the community motivated, in particular the young people. And of course, the huge amount of data, the nice question that we have heard about, the study of the Higgs boson, the search for new physics, and many other things should be enough. But it's also true, we see it in the in discussion with the young people. This was also very clear in the ECFA Early Career Researchers panel, that the young people want also to see what comes next, want to have clear idea about the future. So one thing that will work well is if in parallel to the operation of the high luminosity LHC, there is the construction of the new facility which will allow the young people to either work at the same time on data analysis and detector development or construction, or choose what they prefer. But this kind of parallelism, which some of us have been actually experienced in the past. I've been working on Aleph, so data analysis at the same time, doing detector R&D and construction for Atlas. So, and that was a fantastic time of my life, because I could look at many different things, and from data analysis to detector construction. So I think that we can now offer the young generation this possibility. I think this will be extremely attractive.
Do you want to? Okay, I'll continue. So, so each of you represent different labs in different regions. So how do you define the role that the labs have in establishing what is the path for the future, for future colliders, that is? Maybe we can start with Yifang or Josh, yeah?
Yeah. I think maybe that in Japan, the proposed to the future collider, the linear collider is proposed for the future project. And, but it is not for Japan. It is a global project. Since I see the two big projects, and it cannot take care of only the one national countries. I think so. We need more worldwide contribution is necessary. Currently, for example, the LHC is operated and almost constructed by the CERN and also the operated by the CERN. But in the next collider, it becomes more large. I think maybe the more international collaboration is necessary. I think so. So that this is the reason why the Japan is proposed to the global project for the next project. So that this is a good sample of the linear collider. And also the linear collider is a very interesting future since energy extendability is very important. Of course, it starts with the 250 GeV for the precision measurement of the Higgs, but the next step is top threshold about 350 GeV and 700 something for the Higgs self-coupling. In future, for the supersymmetry, I still believe the supersymmetry. So I think maybe the extendability is very important for the future collider. This is the second reason why that we propose to the linear colliders. Thank you.
So Leah, you want to add something?
Yes, thank you. So as the P5 report asserted, we are poised to host a 10 TeV Parton Center of Mass Energy Frontier Collider in the future. Fermilab has large enough site. We know that there are muon collider designs that fit in our site, and we have stood up and said that we are very interested to explore hosting a muon collider on the Fermilab site as an international project. So I see a very concrete role that the lab will play, and that is, as again the P5 report recommended, to bring together and establish a national task force with international representation to delineate the 20-year strategic plan for the Fermilab accelerator complex, consistent with a muon collider in the far future, of course, and designing the upgrades of the accelerator complex consistent with that, but also delivering on our current neutrino program. So that is a very clear role for us.
That's indeed very clear. I had the impression that some people would say if you go for a muon collider, there would be an advantage of first having a demonstrator of a small muon collider. What is your vision or plans potentially on that topic?
Yes, thank you. I agree with this, and in fact the P5 report specifically says that we should consider a demonstrator within this next decade, within this decade. So to my mind, when we bring together the national task force to look into the accelerator complex evolution with the muon collider in mind, one important part of the charge will be to recommend an intermediate demonstrator of key technologies for a muon collider and suggest where that would take place. And we believe that Fermilab can definitely host that. It's going to be, to my mind, a major project, so it has to be done as an international project again and very thoughtfully planned.
Yifang, do you want to add something?
Our institute is actually the largest research center for basic science. We have a mission to be one of the world leaders on particle physics, and also to be a multidisciplinary research center for applications using the synchrotron radiation facilities and also spallation neutron source. Exactly for this purpose, we build our light source, build our spallation neutron source. We have a neutrino program. We have the Beijing Electron Positron Collider. But this is probably not enough because China is a big country. You have almost 20% of GDP of the world and 20% of population. So proportionally, we should have significant and equal contributions compared to other leading countries. Exactly for this reason, we proposed the CPC. It is a big project, and a lot of people think that this is not feasible, difficult, too large, etc. But if you look at the GDP of China, if you look at the population of China, and if you look at the project, which spans over 10 years, and the community of the science, is not terribly too big, and we are not actually spending more money than our colleagues in biology, in condensed matter, in other fields. So if you divide by the scientists, number of scientists in the field, divide by the years we are going to use this facility, we are not using much more than other people. So that's why it is our obligation and it is our duty to try to do the best science in particle physics, and we are actually trying to get this project located in China, get the funding from our government, large part of it.
Very quickly, you mentioned CEPC as, of course, a major facility. What do you consider the most challenging objective in the years to come to realize the CEPC? Is it the SRF? Is it the civil engineering? Is it the detectors? Where are you putting the focus on?
10 years ago, I think what you said are all the difficulties and challenges to us. And after 10 years of R&D, study, and so on, and since we managed to publish our TDR last year, we understand that these are not obstacles for us for the future collider. We can do it.
Okay, so I have another question. So in planning for future colliders, this is for Fabiola, given there are many technological potential options, how should we, and limited resources, how should we balance the available resources to explore different options, different collider options or different technologies options? In this case, I'm thinking about the European Accelerator RD roadmap. And then at what point should we choose?
So if you talk about the technologies, I think we should continue to work on all of them in parallel. We should never choose. I give you an example. high-field superconducting magnets. They are important for a future circular hadron collider. They're important for a muon collider. They're important for detectors. They're important for medical applications. So I think the field should continue to push the technologies and to be very broad. So for instance, at CERN, actually we cover almost all the technologies of the accelerator R&D roadmap, from muon colliders technologies to high-field magnets, superconducting RF, plasma. And I don't think that that we should abandon them. For instance, I give you an example. We are developing a funding model for a future circular collider. So how much money we have to invest, where does the money come from, etc. And in the funding model, we have set aside money to continue to develop, to do R&D for technologies that have nothing to do with the FCC, for instance. And or to do a scientific diversity program which is complementary to the collider. I think it will be very dangerous to put all of our eggs into one basket. So I would really support, to continue the effort of the community to be as broad as possible in the technologies, because those technologies are useful for the future of the field, not only for a collider. There are many other interesting experiments to be done, but also for the impact that the field has on society.
Okay.
Thank you, Fabiola. You mentioned also the scientific diversity, which was also stressed in the European strategy, and I believe it's on the minds of many people. Maybe, Leah, if you look to Fermilab, Fermilab has also a very wide portfolio of science and research infrastructures. How do you see Fermilab evolving with such a wide portfolio if you have as well an ambition of a major collider? Is it a challenge to balance diversity with the ambitions and the implementation, especially, of a major collider?
To my mind, the whole program goes together and needs to stay like that. In other words, pursuing an ambitious collider in the far future and pursuing an ambitious neutrino program over the next 1 to 2 decades has to go hand in hand with a portfolio of smaller and medium-scale experiments that can produce continuous results, scientific results, that give the opportunity for instrumentation development, give the opportunity for training to students and early career scientists and PhD theses, and also a commonality in the development of technologies. So to me, and we're delighted with the P5 report that recommended Asai as a series of agile, exactly portfolio of agile, small, medium-scale projects for that purpose. So it's almost necessary, if you have ambitions for a long-term, big-scale international project, to have a series of intermediate projects for all the reasons I mentioned.
Shoji, for sure.
Okay, so the KEK has also the many programs. So currently Super KEKB, also the JPAC with Hyper Kamiokande for the neutrino program will be started 2027. So currently the human resource in the KEK is very limited. So this is the reason why we ask for the globalist project. So currently we make start for the ILC technology network. This is not for the KEK, just for the worldwide race. So currently we start of the R&D internationally. So this is very important point. And furthermore, in the various technologies very important for the energy upgrade. Basic design is superconducting RF technology. This is always matures. But in the future, we can upgrade using traveling wave method and also the normal conducting C-cube technology. Or furthermore, in future, so the plasma accelerator is also our choice. But such R&D is performed worldwide in linear collider frameworks. Okay, thank you very much.
Yifang, you, okay.
We are newcomers. 20 years ago, we have almost nothing, or 30 years ago, we have almost nothing. So in order to really catch up, I think about 12 years ago, we came up with this idea of CPC, which becomes the driver of our development on technology and also on the training of the young people. With this kind of ambitious program, indeed, we managed to have a very competitive new team now, not just looking inward like a small E plus minus collider Beijing BPC and also small light source. We are actually now looking for bigger machines, more advanced technologies, and so on. So I think having a comprehensive program with a leading project is very important. So in addition with the CPC as the leading project, I just showed that we have a light source, we have a satellite, we have a neutrino program. These are all needed because without this kind of complementary and with synergies of the program, we are not able to move forward because we can easily die because of a failure of one program. With all of this, we can help, every programs can help with each other so that the whole institute can move forward with a kind of a guaranteed of a success.
Mm-hmm. So, funding question. So, all 4 labs have experience on large and long-term planning for research facilities, and And we know that often, not always, but can carry risk of cost overruns and delays. So can you share past and present experiences on your labs, and what do you think we learn from it, and how those experiences can help us mitigate in the planning for a future collider? Whoever wants to take, do you want to take it? Yes?
Yes, so it's a very hard question. So first of all, I must say CERN has quite a good record in terms of cost containment for projects. I give you one example, which is quite recent, the high luminosity LHC. The high luminosity LHC, depending on what you include in the cost, if you include only the machine or the experiments or the workforce, is a, say, 1.5, 2 billion class project. The cost for the high luminosity LHC was established in 2015 price, and was 950 million. Today, 8-9 years later, and after the turmoil of the past years with COVID, the invasion of Ukraine, inflation, electricity costs, blah, 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 the cost increase has been only of 11%. Whereas other projects, I'm not mention which ones, of the same class in terms of financial volume, have seen cost increase of factor of 2 or 3. So I think CERN has quite a good record. If we take the LHC, for instance, it was a 5 billion project. The cost overrun was at the level of 20-25%. So I think there is a good, so why that? I think CERN has, especially over the past years, has developed the capability of really costing project with very high precision and a very comprehensive way, not letting, leaving piece aside and not really including in the cost itself. So it's quite a comprehensive cost estimate. We do not have, also there is a very rigorous project management and cost scrutiny, because unlike in the US, we do not have a contingency in our costing, and so if there is a cost overrun, we have to try to face it with the staging, the scoping, on finding a more clever solution. So for me, concerning, on the other hand, timescale, we know the LHC was not exactly on time, so there have been delays now for high luminosity LHC as well, although clearly to a lesser extent. I think it's very important also for the credibility of the field vis-a-vis politicians, the public, etc., that when we make cost and timescale estimate, we make them in the most realistic way possible. So costs that are inclusive of everything, you don't forget about computing maybe, you forget about operating costs, you forget about dismantling the previous facility. No, all these things have to be included. And also in terms of time scale. Very often we see the technically limited schedule, but this does not take into account approval procedures, implementation in the territorial environment, etc. So I think we have really to be, for the credibility of the field, and we are considered to be a very serious field, we have to be very realistic in the estimates of the cost and time.
Thanks. Yes, Leah?
So I want to offer an example, LBNF and Dune, which really underwent serious cost overruns at the early stages. I want to say that the cost effectively from the very early assessment of the project roughly doubled to now. And there were multiple factors that entered into this. By the way, I want to set the record straight that since 2019, the cost, the total project cost has stayed more or less constant, and we're executing according to the schedule and to the budget that we have agreed with the Department of Energy. But why these cost overruns? First of all, we encountered many totally unfamiliar conditions. We really went into an old gold mine, and we made plans to change it into a state-of-the-art research facility. And we had to excavate 800,000 tons of rock. In doing so, we encountered a number of projects, reliability projects with the mine and with the infrastructure. and the upgrade of the infrastructure there, and so on. So what have we learned from, by the way, now the excavation is complete, and starting next year we'll be assembling the cryostats for the 2 massive detectors, 1 mile underground. So what can we learn from it? I would say, number one, rigorous project management. I agree 100% with Fabiola. Rigorous and conservative estimate, and then thorough reviews by other experts in the field who have similar experience and can help catch mistakes or omissions. The second is understand costs in unfamiliar realms. Somehow do more work on that. Engaging partners from the very beginning of the project. Also transparency in all of this with the community, with the stakeholders, with the funding agencies, with the partners, national and international, and stability of funding. Thank you.
Do you want to add anything?
In IHEP, almost all our accelerator projects never had delays or cost overruns. Our current project, the Lysos, which is scheduled to finish the construction completely by end of next year, and we are going to see the light by end of this year. So we are kind of confident that we can finish the project within budget and within the schedule. Of course, there are other projects like Juno, you probably heard, some delays and budget overrun. So that's exactly similar problems like Leah just said, because we ended up problems of the underground water problem, which is civil construction, the underground, often you have this kind of very unexpected problem, which is beyond our expertise. But generally speaking, I think there are a lot of successful projects and there are a few not so successful projects, but people tend to talk about not so successful projects and forget about those which are successful. So I think there are some bias when people talking about this.
KK for Japan. So the Japanese government makes it very conservative. So I always were controlled of the budget and time schedule. And every year we re-examined and also checked everything. So there are no serious overrun of the cost. And sometimes delay, but it's maybe the controllable. For example, the Hyperkamiokande construction, of course, currently, even in Japan, for the construction cost is increased about 30%. Maybe the US is a factor too, but in Japan, it's also 30%. But the increase, but so every year we have to control for this overrun. And for example, the operation, it's sometimes delays. For example, about more than 10 years ago, we have competition between the KEC B versus slugs for the B factories. At that time, slugs just smoothly started. On the other hand, KEK has some problems, so luminosity is too low at first. At that time, in the KEK has make some special teams, not only the accelerator people, but also the particle physicists join the commissioning. So such a special support we can make every time. So this is a good point in Japan. So this is not so very easy organization in Japan. So I think maybe currently the Super KEC B has also some problem of the luminosity, especially with the unstable of the beams. So now we make some special teams, not only the accelerator, but also the particle physicist, and also that we are asking about some support from the another country's labs. So I think maybe the flexibility is very important to such a control. I think so. Thank you very much.
Very good. I feel a lot of confidence around the table for timescales and funding, which is good. Let me then very briefly ask, in your confidence, for a number. What is the first moment you would think your future collider could start, Fabiola, the FCCEE? Do you have a rough number where you can have confidence that we can see the first collisions of an FCCEE?
Well, I would say any future collider at CERN, FCCE, of course, is at the moment what the European strategy recommended to study. Can start on a time scale of 2045, so not before that. I would say it's very hard because high luminosity is running until 2041. Maybe realistically, I will say 2048. That is the 2045 to 2048 is my guess.
Thank you, Fabiola. We're looking 20 years ahead, so that is true. Maybe, Yifang, you have a number as well for CEPC.
I don't have a date with confidence. I have a date which I hoped for. We hope that we can start the construction around the year of 2027 and finish the construction in 2037. That's hope a date. And maybe delayed to 2040 at the latest. And if much later than that, probably we probably will not do it.
Thank you. Yes, for the ILC, probably you have a number in mind as well.
Yeah, this depends on the international discussion. If the international discussion is on schedule, in this case, we can start the construction about 2030s. It may be depend, and maybe the construction is it takes 9 years. So I hope we start within the end of the 2030s or close to the 2040s. But it depends on the international discussion. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's probably a daunting question for a muon collider, but you might have some views on a... It's a daunting question for a muon collider to think when a muon collider could start. Any views on the decade, let's say, it could start?
I don't have any views about when a muon collider might start. I'm very focused on first science from June 2028-29 and first science with the PIP2-beam, beam-based neutrinos in 2031.
Thank you. So looking at these very long timescales, of course, there is some competition among the different projects we have in the different regions. There is, of course, also collaboration. I think we've seen it on the SRF front, on many other fronts. How do you see that there might be a moment in time over these many years where competition becomes collaboration? Is there a requirement to collaborate at some moment, sooner or later, in realizing at least one of these future colliders? Who will take that question?
So, Jorgen, you said it, I think, correctly. We are collaborating in that there are exchanges. You know, if you restrict ourselves to colliders, so ILC and CPC, FCCE, there are, you know, Yifang knows very well that he's several times asked for CERN expert to serve on International Advisory Committee on review of the TDR, even chairing the review of the TDR from CERN people. So there has been, of course, collaboration similarly for the ILC. Now CERN is as the role of central hub of the ITN, the International Technology Network. So there is collaboration. And also in the past, maybe to make an example on, say, global optimization of the field, after we know of the cancellation of the SSC, the American scientists came to work on the LHC, and they've continued to contribute and now contribute to the high luminosity LHC. And when the previous P5 recommended the development and the construction of LBNF Dune, CERN, the previous management, decided to stop any long baseline neutrino beams in Europe, not to compete directly with the US, and on the other hand, to establish the neutrino platform to foster the European participation in LBNF Dune and also in Hyper-K in Japan. So this is an example of global optimization. Now, for a future collider, I think things will become obviously clear once a decision is taken by one of the other or the other continent. As soon as one continent takes the decision or clearly make a clear step towards the realization of that collider, this of course will have impact on the decision for the other continents. And so I think that we are all ready to collaborate on these projects and to make sure that we do not repeat things unnecessarily.
Perhaps Yifang, you want to add something here?
Yes, I think collaboration in our field is essential and also very much deep in our blood. So we all wanted to collaborate. And indeed, even it's a competing project at the current stage or in early stage, but still the collaboration existed. Just Fabiola said, we already have, even though this is a competing project, but we have a lot of collaborations. I believe once the project becomes clear, collaboration will be even more, let's say, broad and deep. We certainly will not continue the CPC project if CERN officially approves the FCC. So by that time, we will be willing to collaborate in a much more broad scale.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
I think maybe the balance of the collaboration and the competition is very important. Currently, we are collaborate, but also the competition. But in the decided, then we need collaboration. I think maybe that you have a same experience in a large experiment. I work in Atlas, I'm sorry, Atlas, yeah. At that time, so we have many competition before the publication. Then, after the strategy of the publication is decided, then everybody collaborate. I think maybe this balance is very important. So currently we are competing, but in futures we collaborate. It's very important, and this is very, our community has such powers, I believe so.
Leah wanted to add.
I just would like to add one example, to start by saying collaboration is essential, absolutely, and I'd like to add one example of technology collaboration that fascinates me. So, starting with the SRF, superconducting radio frequency technology for the 1.3, for the ILC years ago at Fermilab, we then moved that technology, changed it, and applied it to the X-ray free electron laser at Stanford, at SLAC, and delivered some of the best performing Crown modules for that machine, which is CW now. And then we turned that technology that included nitrogen doping and applied it to PIP2, modified it, and now we're applying the low beta 650 cavities PIP2 to FCC. We hope to also apply them to the electron-ion collider that is being built at Brookhaven. And we also apply similar technology, but same basis, for semiconductor lithography accelerator-based.
Okay, so one of the things that we heard is the timescale of the next future colliders plan. So what we always hear that it is important to have a plan. We just heard it from you, to have a plan close to the facilities that are running, such that we don't have a gap in between. Can you explain this or justify why is that important to have into consideration when we think about planning the future?
From my viewpoint, there are two elements. One is the continuity of expertise, so continuing to have the expertise being transferred from a facility to the next one. If the gap is too long, we risk to lose the expert to other fields or to go to industry, for instance. So also if you want succession planning for people in the various labs and universities. But most importantly is for the young people, because the young people, of course, want to see the next step of their career, and having a long gap, say 10 years or more between the end of facility and the next one, for instance, in Europe, you know, the delta T of 10 years between the end of Hailumi and the beginning of the next facility, I think will probably push many young people to go and do other things. And of course, it will be good, on the other hand, to try and expand our field, of course, with projects that are compelling from the scientific viewpoint, of course, and not just for the sake of them, but and here we are all talking about future projects that have an enormous physics potential. So I think it's very important. Now the question is, a related question is, does the field have the workforce to develop different projects, different technologies, different colliders? I think the answer is yes. And the more compelling project we have, the more we attract people to the field. But I think it is also very important that we try to push, and this is something that people, particularly working at the universities, can do, pushing for that at the universities. You know, the accelerator science is taught as one of the most important classes, instrumentation, which is not always the case in all universities. So this is very important to educate tomorrow's and to train tomorrow's workforce and to expand the discipline, knowing that, of course, this kind of education and training is important not only for particle physics, but also for application in industry and for other professional work. So I think that these two aspects, having facilities that are not, with not to a huge gap, and promoting training for this, for the technologies relevant to this facility at universities are two important issues.
Okay, thank you. And anyone wants to add? Yes, please. No, nothing else to add? Okay.
Fabiola, you're right, universities are also working on different topics in physics and even outside of physics, cosmology, nuclear physics. Of course, all future colliders have on their mind particle physics. Universities have, of course, on their mind as well cosmology, nuclear, astroparticle physics, gravitational waves these days. It's a question to everybody, of course. How do you see our field, particle physics, further engaging with interdisciplinary work on technology, on physics, with our adjacent fields, with our friends in the adjacent fields?
So CERN is peculiar in that we have a founding convention which clearly establishes our mission. And the founding conventions, which dates back to 1954, as you know, this year we CERN, not us, but CERN is turning 70. No, I wanted to says that our goal should be research in nuclear physics. At the time, particle physics was part of nuclear physics. That's why we have the N in CERN. And accelerator-based particle physics, or particle coming from cosmic rays, because those were the sources of particles at the time. So CERN, by its founding convention, it cannot become a cosmology lab or something like that. However, there are, of course, very strong connection between CERN and other fields. First of all, we do have a nuclear physics facility. We have ENTOF, we have Isolde. There are some aspects of the antimatter accelerator which have importance also for nuclear physics. We have an heavy ion program. With astroparticle physics and cosmology, of course, the main link, first of all, is that the physics is one physics, the same physics. So clearly there is an interest in that, and there are, of course, at the level of theoretical physics and theories, a lot of collaboration. But also the collaboration are through the technology. So CERN can contribute to these experiments by providing the technologies in domains where CERN has the expertise. Give two examples. The dark side experiment at Gran Sasso needed a cryostat, which was very similar in characteristics to the cryostat we are building for LBNF Dune. So CERN has been building the cryostat for that experiment. Einstein telescope need very push vacuum technologies, and now CERN is working on those. Computing is another example, collaboration with SKA and many other facilities. So CERN cannot directly become a laboratory for astroparticle physics because the convention does not allow it, and changing the convention requires approval by the parliaments of all the 23 member states. However, we can collaborate through the technologies.
Yes. Maybe I would like to talk a little bit more broadly, not just for Fermilab. To my mind, interdisciplinary collaboration is almost critical to generate new ideas, especially nowadays. Take as an example material science. A lot of the accelerator technologies to advancement utilize material science. And that goes for high-power targetry, for SRF, for magnets, and so on. And traditionally, we have some conferences to do that, like PANIC is an example where it brings together high energy and nuclear. I think we'll see, I'm seeing more and more interdisciplinary PhD theses being done, combining, for example, AI with either data analysis or particle physics and so on, or developing SRF for quantum science, and etc. To my mind, that's almost a direction that our field is going, and it would be good to embrace it. And yeah, maybe funding opportunities that are targeted to interdisciplinary research might be a source of encouragement.
Do you want? Of course. I continue. Yes.
So in Japan, so the funding is a mixed every field. So I think maybe so we can explain why the Higgs is important to the nuclear physicist and the astronomy physicist. I think maybe so. I always said that not only the particle physics overview, but also the we have to consider why the Higgs is important in astronomy or blah, blah, blah. So, for example, the Higgs can become for infraton or some things. I think maybe such things have to consider every time. And Fabiola and Ria-san said we also considered new technology. So the technology has the same common for the another field. I don't know for the social science, but in basic in the science is maybe we have similar technologies. So, for example, AI and quantum became more important our futures. I think maybe such a direction is also very important. We have to consider every time new things. I always said in Japan there.
Just to add one more point about this, I think our field, particle physics, on the one hand, relatively we are much larger to collaborate compared to other fields. I mean, usually our collaboration is much bigger. And our facilities are, generally speaking, much more complex and bigger and difficult than other fields. Not necessarily 100% true, but in general, somehow. So we actually can give them a good example how we work together and how we resolve problems, scientific and technologically. So in many cases, they do seek help from us, I mean, in many cases. And so I think these kind of interactions and it's very important. So I think we are viewed by other people in the community that particle physics sometimes is a model for them to do research, and they need our help. So I think we should continue like this, and this is also very important for the development of our own field to help them.
So we have another question that is perhaps related to this because is on connections, but not on other fields. But how do you see your lab connections or with universities? They are users, but how do you think that is optimal? Will you change something, for instance, between the connection between the lab and the university? Yeah.
I see the university community in the United States as an essential ingredient to formulating our science ideas, innovations, and technology, both strategies, plans, and executing, and then operating, and then harvesting the data, and getting to the scientific results. The specific example that I want to give is Fermilab's role to the US CMS community. Fermilab is the host lab of US CMS, which is about 2,000 member collaboration, roughly, whereas we have the major centers. We have the LHC Physics Center, Tier 1, the Remote Operations Center. We welcome the community to come and do all of these things, training, bring students, and so on, and do the research, participate in operation, and etc. at Fermilab. I see this as working very well. Maybe it would be good to hear Fabiola's point of view, and it could be a model for the future, to my mind.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to the university community, I want to say, and as I said, they're essential.
Thanks. Do you want to take any of you?
So the raison d'être of the large-scale facilities like CERN, Fermilab, and many others is providing to the users high-level and scientific installation. So the success also of these research facilities are measured in terms of the number of users. So the users, the universities, the worldwide community is an important thing. And at CERN, there is also a duty of not only providing this facility, but also serving this community and providing to the community an effective and welcoming site for the researchers to do the research at CERN. I'm very happy that the user community continues to increase at CERN. I would like to mention that the important thing, however, to increase the user community is really the attractiveness of the facility. When the LHC started operation in 2009, the number of users increased by more than a factor of 2, almost a factor of 3. So this clearly speaks. So the relation with the users and with the universities are very strong and very important. Of course, one can always do better, but that's very important. CERN has an important role also to be a node, maybe a central node, in the network of national and international laboratories in Europe and beyond, but particularly in Europe. As I always say, CERN is the laboratory of the member states. Is the laboratory of France, of the UK, of Italy, Germany. I'm not going the Czech Republic, not going to mention all the member states, but is not another thing. Is the laboratory of all the member states. Is not located in is located in a specific member state in Switzerland, but it's so. In that sense, it plays the role also of serving and fostering research at the national and international laboratory in Europe, and we have very strong relation with the major laboratories in Europe, not only in terms of the collaboration, but also very often, from time to time, these laboratories have difficulties, and CERN is always ready to step in and help. I think for this reason, the survival of CERN, I think, is very important for the full landscape of scientific infrastructure in Europe, because of this specific role of service and support that CERN has for the whole community.
That is indeed a wonderful statement, Fabiola. Let me turn for the last topic maybe to maybe an elephant in the room, sustainability. It is certainly something that we have to consider if we build, even if we operate today colliders, but certainly if we build future colliders. And the society is moving very fast on this topic. So that means also we have to think, indeed, on these timescales 20, 30 years ahead. And of course, we can mitigate the CO2 footprint, we can mitigate the energy consumption with dedicated technologies, the use of sustainable energies, and many other sustainable practices. But the big question, and certainly in the realm of Europe, Fabiola, if you think about the Green Deal of Europe, where everybody is standing behind, of course, do we do enough at this stage in order to develop strategies for becoming more sustainable with accelerators, such that 20, 30 years from now, we are not jeopardized with these arguments if we would like to operate them? I believe Europe is certainly one of the leading regions in this.
You know, in these things you never do enough, and so we can do more. However, I think there has been growing awareness over the past years of the importance of sustainability and minimizing the impact of our research infrastructure on the environment. I think it's very important that our field becomes, again, a model. We are a model in many things. Yifang was mentioning this before. We are a model of worldwide collaboration. We are a model of technological development. I think it will be good if you could also become a model of sustainable research, that research can be done in a sustainable way. So there are many initiatives that have been put in place. As you know, at CERN we produce every 2 years a public environmental report where we state facts, how much we are, how scope 1, scope 3, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, water consumption, electricity consumption, 11 different domains, and we set ambitious but realistic goals. But also, it's very important to push the technologies through dedicated R&D that allow, first of all, us, but also society to minimize the impact on the environment and increase sustainability. So I'm thinking about high-efficiency power sources, I'm thinking about superconducting magnets working at high temperature, and many other things. So this is one thing that we can do, and this will boost not only our technologies, but also have a visible impact on society. Another thing that is very important is to work, and this has been done also recently, not only at CERN, but in many labs, to reuse the energy. That's another important thing. So reuse the energy to heat, for instance, households and other things. So are we doing enough? No, but I think that there is awareness now. Look at, for instance, we were discussing this at the ICFA meeting on Sunday. ICFA as a sustainability panel. At CERN we have a lot of sustainability efforts, and in many other labs this is the same thing. So we should continue, we should ramp up those efforts, and it's clear that a future collider, whichever this collider will be, must be, of course, carbon neutral is a very difficult thing, and green is very difficult thing, but have an impact on the environment which is absolutely acceptable by society. Otherwise, this will be a showstopper. I think that is a showstopper.
Thank you, Fabiola. I'm sure some of you would like to add. Shoji, for sure.
Yeah. For the linear collider, the design is 20 kilometers. It is shorter than the current LHC. So this is the reason why the LHC became more sustainable. And furthermore, so we are study about the energy recovery. Since linear collider, there's no synchrotron radiation, so that we can reuse energy if we use the energy recovery line that is prepared. Of course, this is still R&Ds, but in future we can reuse for the energy, and also in this case we can reuse positron. So currently the positron is dropped, but if we can prepare for the energy line, like in this case we can prepare for reuse for the positrons. So this is very useful for the luminosity. I think maybe such R&D should be continued. So these are not only the IRC, but also the old facility can be used for in futures. I think we need such R&D is necessary. Otherwise, there are no future in our field. I think so. Yeah.
I believe that's probably a wonderful statement to end with. But there's a last question, and Florencia will give you the last very short and brief question to end with.
Yes, so in one sentence, as you see, we are almost done on time. Do you have a takeaway message that you want to leave the panel with? Do you want to say something? Maybe we start, whoever wants to take.
I think let's enjoy. Physics is very interesting, and let's enjoy. I have enjoyed for the last 40 years, so keep, especially for the younger generation, so the science, physics is very interesting. So let's enjoy, and also you watch not only your study, but also the other study is very interesting. And the combination is also very important. So let's enjoy your science.
Thank you. Yifang.
I would say that you can take away the message that in the future, not very far from now, there will be Higgs factory. Believe it.
I would say we need to continue to be bold and ambitious and dream big, and yet to be realistic in our plans.
And I will say that, as we have seen at this conference, the field is extremely vibrant, is extremely exciting. There are fantastic questions to address, all intertwined between particle physics, astroparticle physics, cosmology, and we do have the technologies to address them. So the future is bright, the future is extremely brilliant, and I envy the young people, because if I had if I were 40 years younger, I would really, for sure, undertake a career in particle physics.
Thank you very much. So with this we end. So thanks to all of you. So now we are going, thank you also for all the participants and everybody that have sent questions, and also for the ICHEP organizers to allow us to have this panel here. So now we are going to go to the next session. So
not the next session, but don't run away. There's one more presentation. Yes. So once more, Fabiola, Lia, Yifang, Shoji, thank you very much. So we have our last presentation in this session, which will give a view on a major particle physics collider that will come along, or we have at least the ambition for having it being realized, the FCC, and we will hear from Rende all of the technologies which are being developed in order to make that happen. Rende, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, so future facilities and advances in accelerated technologies. And if you want to do all the future facilities, I would need much more than these 20, 25 minutes I have. So that's why we concentrate on one and leave some time, because this is initially what I did. I included more facilities, but then there was no space left for the technologies. So the scene has already been set for me, actually, because we had this nice talk by Hitoshi and then the panel. But then I will go through the future, possible future facilities, and then highlight the one on FCC, and then look into the technologies that enable the future for this, and finish with a few concluding remarks. So first of all, setting the scene was the idea to refer to the European strategy update, which clearly says that there is a compelling scientific argument for a new electron-positron collider, and that this could possibly be followed by a order of 100 TeV hadron collider, and that also the R&D in accelerator-related topics should be increased. We saw already the P5, which was very much in line with this, and therefore I will switch immediately to the possible future facilities. So this is the first group of facilities, is a group of facilities that could start between now and 2045. Their operation, and EIC, we heard already this morning, actually is already approved, so it's not just possible, but it's going to happen, luckily. And then there is FCC, EE, CEPC. We also heard the electron-positron collider in China. And then we have the linear variants, the ILC and the CLIC, which are both have a very mature technology and plan already. And then there is this cool copper collider proposal in the US at SLAC. Beyond 2045, we could convert this FCC-EE into a hadron machine. And by that time, technology would also be advanced enough to probably have a muon collider that we could either construct or start. And also on the CPC side, they could convert their machine into a hadron collider. During the first 2 days of the ICHEP conference, I attended the accelerator parallel sessions, and there were lots of other very interesting ideas. And as I said, I cannot treat everything in here. There was a very enthusiastic presentation about energy recovery Linux and facilities based on this. Perl and Berlin Pro are pathfinders to work towards such a kind of facility. Wakefield acceleration was addressed, which is also part of the European strategy, by the way, and even facilities using this Wakefield acceleration, like a muon facility, and the half proposal, hybrid asymmetric linear Higgs factory, partly based on Wakefield acceleration. A super tau charm facility in China, and there was also a very interesting presentation on compact Linux, how to miniaturize, but still have the good performance for research, medical applications, and industrial applications. Now, as I said, I will concentrate on the international collaborative study for a CERN-based future circular collider. And there are many topics that need to be addressed. RF technology, vacuum technology, magnet technology. And also there, I can only pick out a few. So if you would stand on the Jura Mountain and look down into the Geneva Basin, and you would be able to depict the LHC, you would see the blue circle. Fortunately, we don't see it because it's 100 meters underground. And if you would depict the FCC, you would see the red circle, and that would be more than 200 meters underground. So the FCC program is a comprehensive long-term program and will be in 2 stages, maximizing the opportunities for physics. The first stage, FCC-EE, as a Higgs factory or electroweak or top factory, and then pushing the luminosities to the highest level. In the numbers, you see things appearing like 1.5, close to 210 to the 36 in the Z mode. And then later on, convert this to an HH machine with approximately 100 TeV center of mass energy. The timeline, so the conceptual design has been completed. We're now in the feasibility study, and that should be delivered in March 2025. And already the last council meeting, the pre-TDR study has been approved and resource loaded, meaning that the funds are there and also the people are allocated. This will then lead into the European strategy, but more importantly afterwards leads into a possible approval by the CERN Council, which we could expect around 2028. If that happens, then we could start the construction of the tunnel in 2032, fill the tunnel by 2038, and as the HLLHC physics program will finish in 2041, we could indeed start operating such a FCC-EE as of 2045. 15 years of operation, converting the machine into a hadron machine would bring us to 2070 for the HH variant. So this project, or this study, is very synergetic and complementary. It enhances the physics potential for both colliders. It uses the same civil engineering infrastructure, and it will allow to have a major project running not so long after the HLHC has completed its physics program. So lots of work have been gone into placing such a machine in this Geneva Basin. Hundreds of layouts have been made. One has been chosen, and you see it's not easy with the rocky landscape, but geologically and environmental-wise, choices have been made to respect environment and cost effectiveness. The baseline now is a 90.7 kilometer tunnel, 8 surface points, 4-fold superperiodicity, and 4 interaction points for the experiments, A, G, J, and D. The integration within the region is also done, access, roads, etc., etc., and in total we will need to construct only 4 kilometers of road to have all the points accessible. Also, the electricity connections have been developed with the French grid operator and are taken into account. Sustainability, as was already mentioned in the panel as well, is an integral part of the study. CERN is committed to environmental protection and heat recuperation, reduced water consumption, and efficient use of electricity are, of course, part of it, but also the life cycle of the facility. So the FCC-EE will be a 2-ring collider with a full booster in a single tunnel, and all the services and a transport corridor is in that same tunnel. The design is such that it operates in multiple stages and follows the physics program for the Z, WW, H, and TT bar. And therefore also the RF system is constructed in such a way that it is scalable. It can increase as the needs of the physics evolve. And therefore for FCC-EE, the superconducting RF is the main area of R&D. In order to push the performance of this machine, we will have a high beam current, and therefore the lifetime of the beam in the machine will be challenging, and this will then require a continuous top-up injection from this booster without interrupting the physics. The HH, the design has also been optimized following the decision on the geometry of the civil engineering. The circumference was reduced by 6.5 kilometers. The target energy remains 90 TeV at 14 Tesla magnets. And what was done is to maximize the energy is the dipole filling factor has been optimized and maximized to put in more dipolar field in order to reach the energy. And there it's clear that the main area of R&D is magnet technology, superconducting magnet technology. Low temperature, high temperature, or hybrid. So some of these technologies that enable the future, and this is this accelerator roadmap that was written by the directory group that were appointed by the CERN Council. And here you have a whole list of topics that were requested to study. And again, I can only look at a few. So I take radio frequency, superconducting magnets, and its powering. And I also took an example from the presentations I got out of the parallel sessions last week. So superconducting RF, it's unthinkable that we build another machine, protons or electrons or muons, with only few cavities. It will request many, many cavities. And therefore, these cavities should be high gradient and superconducting. Not only for sustainability reasons, but also for space reasons. Worldwide, there has been a significant effort to push high gradient RF and Q factors, but at CERN, this focus has not been there for several years because we were concentrating on the LHC. If we look, LEP ran with 288 cavities, and we were concentrating lots on RF. In the LHC, we only have 16 cavities. But now in the FCC, in TTT bar mode, and the booster, we will require more than 1,000 cavities in this machine. So it's important to address these topics. In Higgs mode, the RF system represents 40% of the electricity consumption of the entire FCC. So what to do in order to optimize further the RF? Well, we can increase the gradient, so more megavolts per meter. If we can do that, then it will reduce the number of cavities, so the capital investment. It will also reduce the space needed, and it will also reduce the cryogenic power that we need to apply in order to cool these cavities. Increasing the quality factor means that we will reduce the losses in these cavities, and therefore also a reduction in cryogenic needs. Using higher temperature superconductors will immediately translate in savings on cryogenic systems and electricity consumption. Today, we have cavities running at 1.9 Kelvin, and if we can make them run at 4.5, then we reduce this need on the cryogenic system drastically. And thin film technology offers a pathway to this enhancement of the performance and this cost effectiveness. So therefore, we need substantial R&D, and this is also ongoing. And at CERN, we therefore decided to build a new superconducting RF facility. The purpose of this facility is to do R&D on single and multi-layer thin film coated cavities, also on bulk material cavities, and looking into higher temperature superconducting materials. Later on, it will serve also as prototyping and pre-series for the FCC. Again, the goal will be to limit the operational cost of any new large facility and to reduce also the capital investment of the SRF systems in the machines. And it's foreseen to have this facility starting mid-2029. So some of the RF-related R&D examples are the work that is being done on the high-efficiency klystrons. You see in this table, or in this graph, that many of these klystrons operate at 40 to 60%, and then we have to push it up to something like 80%. This is a 400 megahertz one-cell niobium-coated copper cavity, which can operate at 4.5 Kelvin. So this is the development that we're doing and that we will continue. More exotically, the slotted waveguide elliptical cavity, foreseen for high beam currents and high gradients. On the FCC H8 side, as I already mentioned, it will be the magnets that will be the driver. And if you take this very simple formula, and we saw already that the circumference now has been fixed to 90.7 kilometers, this means that the beam momentum that you can have in your machine is directly proportional to the dipole field that you can apply. And if you look at this graph, you see here the magnets of the LHC that work beautifully, that are made of the niobium titanium material, and they have an upper limit at 9 Tesla. If now we look at other materials which we use in the HLLHC and which we're going to deploy there, we can go up to something like 16 Tesla, and this is also one of the technologies that we use for the FCC. However, if you want to go beyond, you need to go to higher temperature superconductors. And there's a lot of work ongoing on that side. In order to canalize and to structure all these developments, a high field magnet R&D program has been set up. And the aim is to collaborate with many partners around the world, national labs, etc., etc. And if I summarize the targets, it's a 14 Tesla dipole field based on low temperature superconductors and a 20 Tesla operational dipole field at high temperature. I cannot resist to put this plot for the muon collider in, because also there we have lots and lots of magnet technologies to develop. Think about a 20 Tesla solenoid magnet in a highly radioactive environment with a hole of 20 centimeters in there for the beam as a capture solenoid. Or the final cooling, where we also look at a solenoid of a 40 Tesla with a 60 millimeter opening. The RCS will then be from superconducting and normal conducting machines, not too challenging, but nevertheless. And then in the collider ring, you would also need 16 Tesla peak fields, again in a radiation heat load environment and also in a radiation dose sensitive environment. This is a highly collaborative endeavor towards this HTS, and here are a few of these collaborators. And you can really see from this plot, which I like a lot, the magnet technology readiness level. And you see here, you see the niobium titanium, which looks like green and is well mastered. And then we get into the niobium 3 tin, which is already getting orange. So we have full-scale demonstrators, and we have now magnets actually that go into our string for the HLLHC. But then if you go towards the REPCO and bismuth high-temperature superconductors, we're really in proof of concept, design concept, and general studies. And when I talked to one of our magnet people, he said, we are entering uncharted territory. Breakthroughs and/or roadblocks may be encountered along the way, and I think this is very representative for the work that's being done. When you want to power these magnets, this is also a very nice development. There is a superconducting link which has been developed for the powering of the HLLHC triplets and matching sections. It comprises 19 magnesium diboride superconducting cables and can transfer in total 120 kiloamps at a temperature of 20 Kelvin. This superconducting link has been successfully validated in operational conditions in our test facility, and you see it in the picture here. Ready to install. CERN has partnered now with Airbus to apply these superconducting technologies also to decarbonize aviation. So I think it's a very nice way that our developments find their way into society. Then, last week, I saw the resurgence of bent crystals. When I came at CERN in the early 90s, people were busy testing crystals, bent crystals, to extract particles slowly from an accelerator and send them to fixed targets. And then years, I didn't hear anything about these crystals anymore. And now, since a few years, it became very fashionable again to talk about them. And I think where diamonds are a girl's best friend, it looks as if crystals are a accelerator physicist's best friend. The LHC and the HLLHC will use crystal collimation, and you see here an only 4 millimeter crystal bent crystal will deviate the beam, the halo particles, by 50 microradians. This is equivalent to 300 Tesla of a 7 TeV beam. This technology has been tested and is the baseline for the HLLHC. Physics beyond colliders, which also take place at CERN, uses this two-Christ technology to extract halo particles and then bring them to a detector and do physics. There has been a presentation to use crystals as a positron source for future electron-positron colliders, and simulations which were benchmarked show that there is about 12% higher yield in positrons for a bunch charge that is 11% lower than on this. So in all, very promising, and in addition, 30% lower power deposited in the target. So challenges were there, and they have been overcome, and now we use them. And one of the big challenges, of course, that these crystals have a very small angular acceptance. Hence, precise positioning of these crystals in the beam is very, very important. And this we now master. The other thing, longer bent crystals, is also a challenge. And this is one of these goniometers which is going into the LHC and is used. Which brings me to the conclusions. So there are multiple competitive, complementary, and challenging design studies for future facilities. The FCC study will conclude, the feasibility study will conclude in March 2025, followed by a resource-loaded pre-TDR study. In the meantime, we have the European strategy process that has been launched and will conclude in 2026 and should give direction. Each generation of facilities pushes the boundaries of technology, which is good. And this requires a substantial effort on the R&D side, and therefore collaboration with among all the labs around the world and industry as well. New technological developments can enhance societal well-being and drive economic growth. And I think the decarbonization of the Airbus would be a very nice example. Studies for future facilities provide a fertile ground for developing new technologies. However, existing facilities are a very nice test bed to test these new innovations. An example, HLLHC will contain niobium-3 tin superconducting magnets, a magnet that is being developed further for the FCC, and the experience we gain from the HLLHC will, of course, be fed back into the R&D of the high field magnets. And as already mentioned also in the panel, no facility can be considered if sustainability is not fully embedded in the design, and the FCC study has embedded this in the design. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rende. Thank you for this wonderful overview. I cannot see the room very well because it's dark at this stage, but if you have a question, please stand up, then it makes it easier for us to see you. I believe there's a question on the left.
Right. Well, thank you very much for this talk, Rende. But so it's a comment that
Yes.
I think this is a nice talk on the FCC and on the CERN program. But I think for this audience, which is an international conference, I really think would have benefited from you going through the different facilities and comparing them.
Yeah.
I do understand that you didn't have a lot of time, but this has been done before successfully at this conference.
I know it was a choice either to compare more facilities.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the audience will remain ignorant about all the programs that you did not cover.
Okay.
Maxime?
Rende, thank you very much for this very nice summaries. Yes. Can you tell about this niobium-13? I mean, what is the status of this niobium-13 wire degradation under the stress management transverse? Where we are currently with this issue?
So on the niobium-310 in the past, there were indeed issues. It's a very brittle material, and if you cool down and warm up, you have the mechanical stresses. And the trick is to apply the correct pre-stress on the cables before cooling down or warming up. And this has been done and is successfully deployed. And we have magnets that passed tests and are ready to be installed in the string, a test string, which we will test before we install it into the LHC.
So you basically consider with these special treatment procedures, you completely solve this problem, and there is a very good degree of reproducibility in this.
For the magnets we produced, yes.
Okay, thank you.
More questions, please? Yes, please. Ken, if I'm right.
Thanks. I'm intrigued by the way the superconductor is going to decarbonize the Airbus. Could you say a little more about that?
Well, I took the example to show that there is work on that, but I don't know the real details behind it. But I can imagine that this is based on liquid hydrogen technology, and that huge amounts of electrical power need to be transferred between either a fuel cell and electrical engines or something like this, and that their superconducting technology could benefit the development.
I believe there's one more question on the right first.
Hi, my name is Johan Bonilla from Northeastern. Back on slide 11, you don't need to go back to it, but you were mentioning just needing to add about 4 kilometers of infrastructure roads for the FCC. Have you thought about getting people there and the social aspect of having experiments that are now going to be so far away that you can't come back to Meran? I will contextualize this a little bit. I work with CMS, and an hour of my day goes in traveling to CMS and back to Meran. So what has been thought about the FCC going forward?
Yeah, so this, of course, is an issue, and the bigger the machine is, the bigger this issue will get. I think, nevertheless, that we should also think that this is not for tomorrow, and that we'll be in a different situation by then than we are now. And we should also strive not only for the experiments, but also for the accelerator operation, that we can do much more remotely. And I think a lot of work still has to go in there. I mean, also on the accelerator side, I'm leading the operations group at CERN, and we have to operate the LHC, which is also very remotely, and we managed to do it. And I'm pretty sure that if we have the FCC in the future, that we will find new ways, and because of the needs, that we will find new ways of doing this. So the question, for me at least, is more, will you indeed still be always in an experimental control room at the experiment? Or would you be somewhere on the Meran site in a control room, together with other colleagues?
I believe there was one more question here in the middle. Sven, yes?
Yeah. When you were presenting the timeline, or the projected timeline of the whole program, the tunnel construction started well within the high luminosity LHC program.
Yeah.
How is this to be understood? Is this what you would like to have, or you think that this is a realistic option, including the financial issues that may arise?
Well, so if you, and Fabiola, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you wait until the HLLC is finished, the gap becomes even longer and you delay further.
We know.
FCCE.
We know this,
but,
yeah?
But
this doesn't answer the question.
No, but so your question is?
Do you think that this is a realistic option?
Yes.
And how do you plan to finance this?
Plan to finance this?
We are developing a funding model for the FCC, which is still in a preliminary phase, but which we will conclude in the mid of 2025, which foresee a start of construction in start of digging of the tunnel, 2031. Then, of course, the accelerator and the detector will come a little bit later. After 3-4 years, the construction can come later on, but the construction of the tunnel will start in 2031.
Would be great if this works out.
Yes.
I'm looking, in the interest of time, one more question, please. Yes.
Thanks a lot. So having it right in mind and the nice views from Fabiola on concerning the tunnel. If I got it right, then we could start immediately with FCCHH, just using let's say the existing magnets and not then waiting for the future thing. And then we would have already something like in 2050, a wonderful hadron machine running maybe with 70 TeV, a wonderful E+ and minus machines in Asia, CEPC and ILC, then everything would be fine. Why not starting with FCCHH with lower magnets?
No, go ahead, Fabiola.
Gudrun, good question, but for two reasons. First of all, the Hadron Collider is much more expensive than FCC-EE, so no way, whereas we can have an FCC-EE on the time scale of 2045, 2048, no way we can have a Hadron Collider even with the current magnet technologies by 2050, because you have to build 4,400 dipoles, and this, even assuming the cost of the LHC dipoles, this will be not affordable, so it will push it back. Second, because the current magnet technology of the LHC needs operation at 1.9 Kelvin. If we operate a 90-kilometer ring at 1.9 Kelvin, the electricity consumption will be 4 terawatt-hour annually, 3 times more than or 4 times more what we are doing together at CERN. I don't think this is sustainable. We need to go to HTS, but this pushes it back.
Thank you. I believe this is providing lots of food for thoughts for the coffee break and potentially even the conference dinner. But before that, let's thank our speaker once more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rende. And we will see each other back after the coffee break.